Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back to the marketplace. Now, if you thought the recent sharp depreciation of the cedi is over, it appears you may have to revise your notes. The local currency has hit one of its highest fall so far this year, reaching 4 Ghana cedis 85 pesos to a dollar. What is causing this, and what can be done to contain this challenge? Details in this report.
Checks showed most of the major banks were quoting 4 cedis 82 pesos and 4 cedis 85 pesos as the selling rates for $1. This should mean since last Friday, the cedi has lost about 7 pesos in value. Some of the banks have told Joy Business that it was due to most foreign investors trying to get out of the local bond market due to higher returns in the U.S. market. Sources say some of the investors are not bringing in the required dollars due to concerns with the interest on long-term bonds as well as the outlook. Some banks also say the Bank of Ghana is not releasing enough dollars to meet their demands, with some maintaining that the situation would not have gotten this bad if the regulator had intervened a bit earlier. But head of finance market at the Treasury at the Bank of Ghana, Stephen Opata, disagrees.
Actually increase our tempo of Bank of Ghana sales of FX to the market. So I expect the situation to continue and for us to have a very stable currency as we have experienced for most of the first quarter. And if you see that we will not be talking about the currency hopefully very soon.
There's also the school of thought that the cedi is overvalued and some level of depreciation is required to get its right levels. For some, if this challenge is not contained very soon to prevent further depreciation, then that might not be good for the economy, looking at the impact of sustained depreciation of the cedi on fuel prices, imported items, spare parts, transport fares, and even mortgage. It could also force the Bank of Ghana to hike interest rates to help minimize its impact on inflation.
And in a related development, government says it is implementing some new measures that should help with the recent pressure on the cedi. Kweku Kwating is Deputy Finance Minister.
We need to take a long-term view of this. I think in the long term, we want to, one, ensure that we reduce our dependence on imports on items that can be manufactured here. And so when you hear one district, one factory, the idea is to seek to produce some of the things that we need, that at the moment we import, to seek to produce them in Ghana. But also, we should also take steps, and we are doing that, to ensure that the repatriation of forex by entities doing business in the economy are properly regulated. And that I am confident the Bank of Ghana is looking at and is capable of delivering on. I am confident that ultimately the strategy to add value to the things we produce would help us earn foreign exchange, but more importantly, as we seek to produce the things we need, we will require less of forex, and therefore the pressure on our cedi would be reduced. In the long term, that's how government looks at these.
All right, so we would like to stay on this a little longer because my colleague George Riafe, who has been following these issues, has joined me in the studio here to answer a few questions. Now, George, why is it that these measures have not been working till now?
Well, just a little bit of backtracking and let people appreciate these issues. It's a more of a demand and supply thing. Now, we don't press dollars. We also depend on the U.S. for dollar supply. So anytime there's limited supply of this currency in there, then you have more Ghana cedis actually chasing the few dollars in the system. If you look at the textbook, Bank of Ghana has the immediate responsibility actually in trying to deal with this challenge. If you do the checklist, they are doing most of the things that every regulator should be doing in this space. But then it comes to this whole argument about how structured is our economy. So those textbooks measures or those policy measures might work in other markets, but it looks like it's not working here in terms of dollar supply, in terms of ensuring that there are some restrictions on how dollars can be used. They're doing that, but it appears that in terms of being on the market or a little more surveillance to appreciate what is happening, that is where the Bank of Ghana might be having some challenge. Because if you look at their reserves, dollar reserves, it's over 8 billion. Okay. Some are saying that can they gauge the right level of dollar demand on the market and then match it? But some are also saying that most of these dollar demands are not really backed by real demand from businesses. So you have a situation where somebody fears that the city is going to depreciate.
Speculation.
So take about maybe 200,000 Ghana cedis, or take even about 1 million Ghana cedis, go and buy dollars and hoard it. Now you are depriving the other business that need that dollar to import goods from outside.
So could it be the reason why commercial banks are also not ready to, give out the dollars?
Because they also have limited dollars, and it's become like a golden egg, where every bank that has limited dollar supply or dollars in its vault want to hold on, because of the Bank of Ghana is not giving much to us. So it looks like those measures need to be quickly reviewed and ensure that they actually are touching the right spot in terms of ensuring that the results are good, because you are pumping it in, it's not going to the right banks, the right institutions. People are taking the dollars, they are taking it out of the country and all the rest. And that is why it appears that it is not working. The IMF also has a different view on it. They believe that government expenditure might have contributed to this. So whilst the Bank of Ghana might be doing X, Y, Z to control the situation, there should also be some commitment on the part of government, how it checks its expenditure to ensure that there's more of a collaborative approach in trying to deal with this situation.
So is it time to look at the long-term measure, boosting our exports to beef up our dollars, so to speak? Because it looks like the short-term measures...
We've always had this thing, and it's about the commitment of it. And there are some who are arguing that the Ghana cedi is overvalued. So you need some level of depreciation. So you don't want to read the minds of the Bank of Ghana and even the policy makers, whether they sometimes want to allow some level of depreciation for the local currency before they react. And that is why some also argue that why did the Bank of Ghana keep so long in stepping into the market to hold the cedi? Maybe they are allowing some correction to take place.
That's quite serious. Let's wait and see what happens next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was my colleague George Riafe bringing us up to speed with some developments surrounding the depreciation of the Ghana cedi. Moving on the marketplace, the Finance Ministry has justified the need to review the tax measures announced in the 2018 budget. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, is expected to present the mid-year budget review by the middle of this month. There are reports that the government could introduce new taxes as well as increase current rates. Deputy Finance Minister Kweku Kwati would not confirm or deny these reports, but maintained government wants to adopt policies that will not disrupt current stability.
A funding gap would create instability. We have had to make the decision between, on the one hand, proceeding with our expenditures, because government revenues are not up to the expenditures, and you would agree that this administration has rolled out many fresh social interventions in order that the citizenry could be supported, but also that we will create an environment within which businesses will grow. What that has meant is that pressure is on government, and therefore to protect the stability of the macroeconomy we're beginning to see, we decided to rather introduce these measures. But we are clear in our minds that going forward, the trend would be more to reduce taxes wherever we can and not be resorting to taxation as a way of growing the economy. This specific intervention that we're bringing in the mid-year review have been necessitated by unpredictable fiscal gaps which we're having to deal with, and we will deal with them as we can. But going forward, government strategy to move away from taxation to production remains a committed one.
Still on the marketplace, moving now, Communications Minister Esther Owusu-Ekufo has challenged postal service organizations in the West African sub-region to take advantage of the digital revolution to transform their operations. According to her, this is important in enhancing regional integration. She spoke at the opening of the West African Postal Conference, which happened in Accra today.
We are all living witnesses to the rapid changes and disruption that digitization is producing in the world. The exponential growth in the adoption of digital technology, unprecedented increase in access to knowledge, and the transformation of every aspect of our lives, which is ongoing. Mr. Chairman, the link between ICTs and social and economic development is widely accepted. And the government of Ghana also recognizes the advantages and benefits of the digital economy. And we are embarking on a very ambitious infrastructure development program for the ICT sector. We recognize that the transformation of Ghana Post into a competitive, regionally integrated, world-class, customer-focused, ICT-enhanced service provider is fundamental to achieving our vision of digitalization. In fact, I made a personal commitment when I was being vetted to become minister to turn around the fortunes of Ghana Post. So now my head is on the line if this digital transformation of Ghana Post does not happen. And that's part of the reason why I am here. Because I have no doubt that through your deliberations, not just Ghana Post, but all the postal administrations in the West African sub-region would also lead the transformation of our economies and our sub-region.
The Public Procurement Authority, PPA, has assured it is going to enforce the necessary laws concerning sole sourcing and restrictive tendering, although the PPA is the only body that is authorized to grant approvals for sole sourcing and restrictive tendering processes. They have been called for a third party in the approval of procurement. However, Chief Executive of the Public Procurement Authority, Ejinim Boating Enim, says his office has what it takes to perform the duties alone. He was speaking at the launch of the maiden journal of the Ghana Institute for Procurement and Supply, GIPS journal, in Accra.
The law currently mandates or requires that approval is granted by the PPA only. Now, we believe that the board, the composition of the board of PPA is more stronger than any of the other structures provided in the law. So if the PPA board reviews a request, we do not see how that request should be subjected to any other review body. The other review bodies are not institutions on their own. They are just ad hoc committees that are put together. They are members who come and review a contract which is above a certain threshold. And so we will rather encourage that they will concentrate their efforts on the thresholds that will be set for the review boards.
Now, policy think tank Center for Economic and Business Research is urging the Bank of Ghana to prevail on commercial banks to reduce their lending rates in accordance with the drop in the prime rate. It says this will consequently bring down cost of borrowing and encourage businesses to expand for economic boost. Executive Director Gordon Newland for Samoa is therefore suggesting a cap in lending rates in a bid to reducing cost of credit and the incidence of non-performing loans.
The central bank has under 2 years reduced the policy rates from 26% in November 2017 to 17% as at May 2018. Banks are, however, yet to react with corresponding drop in lending rates as businesses continue to endure high credit costs. Ifwa Jemfwa Oswichan is chair for Association of Ghana Industries, the Ashanti and Bonohafu regions.
We realize that interest rates for industries are almost at par with interest rates for commerce. Banks don't have the right to increase or give loans out at 37%, 40%. You have to negotiate with the industries, and the government has also brought something on board too, that if you are negotiating with an industry, you have to look at the net worth of the industry, the capability of the industry, the capacity of the industry to peg the interest rate.
Some businesses, like those in the automobile industry, for instance, have called continuously for low interest rates at the banks. According to them, it holds the potency to make quality vehicles accessible to the Ghanaian market. Kasim Udaimat is Chief Operations Officer of Rana Motors.
I've always even encouraged that the interest rate should be going down. Even last year, I spoke about this one. For us, the lower the interest rate is, the more accessible our vehicles, or let me put it in this way, the more accessible new vehicles are accessible to everybody and the people to Ghana. And for us, that's what we want. More accessibility to new vehicles, which will lead to better service, which will lead to what we call it safer roads, having better cars, better quality cars on the roads, instead of having second-hand cars, or even having cars which doesn't fit our specifications in the country, which may lead even to problems.
Executive Director of Policy Think Tank, Center for Economic and Business Research, Gordon Newlava Samoa, is suggesting capping the lending rate is the way to go. He says this can reduce the high non-performing loans in the financial sector.
So naturally, when the policy rate comes down, you expect that banks will also react. Of course, the policy rate is not the only determinant of lending rate, but it plays a role. So we are calling on the central bank that if the banks are not responding, then the central bank should find a way of making sure that they respond to the policy cut. And for that reason, the center is proposing that the central bank should place a cap on the lending rate so that no bank can lend to customers above certain lending rates, so that cost of borrowing will become less, and then businessmen can borrow to do more businesses and expand the economy.
Interest rate ceilings can be justified on the basis that financial institutions are making excessive profits by charging unserious interest rates to clients. The central bank's intervention is required to protect vulnerable clients from predatory lending practices. Prince Apia reporting.
Let's just stay in Kumasi, because the Crops Research Institute is decrying lack of government support in fighting the fall armyworm invasion. Director of the institute, Dr. Stella Ama-Enin, says the support received by the institute is channeled into the screening of insecticides developed in other countries. Lava FM's Kwesi Debra reports.
Speaking at the Africa Scientific Renaissance Day in Kumasi, she said research into breeding maize plants which are resistant to the pest will be a lasting solution.
We have had to go around knocking on doors of donors. And thank God we've had some donors helping. But they are supporting the aspects that are of interest to them. We believe that breeding for host plant resistance is vital as part of the integrated pest management of the pests. However, we have not had any support in that aspect. What we are doing now is okay, but we still need to have the breeding component. And so we are still looking for financial support for research in breeding for host plant resistance, to come up with maize varieties which have within their genes some level of resistance to the fall armyworm. And with that resistance, just a minimum amount of chemicals, minimum amount of biological control together would be able to give us this lasting solution that we are looking forward.
An entomologist at the institute, Dr. Kofi Frimpong Enin, hinted a model to predict movement of the pest will be completed by 2019.
Similar things have been developed for the African armyworm, which is indigenous to Africa, and we don't hear much about them because we have that system in place. So once they are about to attain the gregarious, that is the stage that they must move and destroy the crops, we put on the necessary interventions. And because of the natural enemies available to a certain period, they might need to bring the pest population down, so their effect on the crops are quite low.
The Africa Scientific Renaissance Day is set aside by the AU to remind all African governments and people about the critical role that science and technology play in national development. This year's celebration saw exhibition of various products developed by the Council and other stakeholders. It was under the theme CSIR, 60 Years of Research of Impact for Sustainable Development. Senior lecturer at the Chemistry Department, KNUST, Dr. Godfred Dako, urged government to beef up the country's research capacity to accelerate development.
In fact, the hardcore content knowledge, I think we are way up there. If you go to South Africa, Israel, those guys, I mean, that's why you go to class with them and beat them in Europe, US, you are first. But when it comes to application, we are not here yet.
Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Professor Kwabena Frimpong Boateng, observes the Council has all it takes to help in the realization of government's Ghana beyond aid. Reporter for Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
All right, so it's a Wednesday, and definitely we will be bringing to you the Joy Business Fan on Business Live later tonight. Let's have a taste of what will happen on Business Live.
Anytime you think rent, you look at the whopping sums that you've got to cough up, well, for your landlord or landlady. So it could be a year, 2, 3 years, and sometimes as far as 5 years. Would you be able to raise this kind of money? But well, at Summerhill Estates, what they're saying is that you could just walk into this estate and with just a day's sum, you pay, you stay, and no advance. So today on the Joy Business Van, we speak with Dr. Obeng, who is the owner of this estate. Let's go. Wow, I like this place.
Oh, thank you. So this is like 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the living room, that's the dining.
Okay.
That's the kitchen.
Over 100 rooms and 52 housing units. This project started from a misfortune.
So you make a date at 5 p.m. on Business Live when we bring to you the full version of the Joy Business Van. Of course, we'll bring a repeat of the program tomorrow on the Marketplace. And that's it for Marketplace today. Many thanks for watching. My name is Emmanuel Abuachi. We are here for that soon.